Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of the Bharat Army Podcast. We are back with more cricket chatter from around the world and hoping that you're all staying home, staying safe. I'm Ashish Gadby, your usual host. And today we have a group of cricket connoisseurs from around the world, as you can see on your screen. And today we are going to be switching up the topic. Now, usually every week we talk about Dhoni, we talk about Kohli, we talk about Rohit Sharma. This week, I don't want to talk about any of them. I don't want to have a peep about any batsman. This week, we are going to be talking about bowlers. And in particular, we are going to be discussing how our bowling attack compares to the bowling attacks from around the world. Now, on this week's podcast, we've literally pulled out people from across the entire world. We are starting off with Naresh from Pune. How's it going, Naresh?
Hi, Ashish. Going good. Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me here.
It's a pleasure.
It's going to be a very intense discussion on this part of the Indian cricket. Yeah,
I would think so. And we also have Kunal, aka KP, joining us all the way from Singapore.
Thanks, Ashish. Really good to be part of this. And like Naresh said, I think looking forward to a very, very intense discussion on India's bowlers. So thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. And we also have a quiz this week for anybody who can guess what the P in KP stands for in Kunal's name. We also have our regular man on the podcast, Rav from London. How's it going, Rav?
Hi, Ash. How's it going? Yeah, excited to be talking about something other than Shastri and Dhoni for a change.
Yeah, we talked about drinking games last week, about how many people can mention Dhoni. I think it might also be a drinking game every time you mention Ravi Shastri to have a little swig of something.
A little bag, exactly.
Yeah. And then finally, we've got Kunal, another Kunal, who's joining us from Sydney. How's it going, Kunal?
Hey, Ashish. Thanks for having me here. I'm all right. So, yeah, pretty excited to be part of the first podcast for myself. So, yeah.
Yes, indeed, yeah. 3 podcast debutants today, and we hope we'll have you back for more at some point. So let's get down to this then. We're talking about India's bowling attack and how we compare to bowling attacks around the world. Now, when you actually look at the ICC rankings, it's actually pretty scarce with Indian bowlers. Now, in my head, I actually think we've got a great bowling attack. So, I was kind of doing my research thinking, there's going to be loads of Indian bowlers across the ICC rankings. Not so much. We've actually only got one name that features in both the Test top 10 and the ODI top 10. And that is, of course, Jasprit Bumrah. He features at number 7 in the Test rankings and at number 2 in the ODI rankings. We've got Jadeja, who features in the all-rounders bracket. But in terms of just the bowlers, it is only Mr. Jasprit Bumrah. So we are going to start off our discussion talking about Mr. Jasprit Bumrah. And what I really want to know from you guys is, I think Bumrah's a great bowler. But how good actually is he? Now, in my lifetime, I suppose, when we talk about fast bowling phenomenons that there have been for India, really, I can only think of 2 names. The first one was Irfan Pathan, and the second really is Jasprit Bumrah. And, when I think about how Pathan started his career, it was like, oh my God, I think that this is the real deal now. We finally found a world-class bowler. Him and Bumrah, of course, both have Test hat-tricks as well. So there's that comparison. But with all due respect to Irfan Pathan, I think Bumrah is a far better bowler than Pathan ever was. So what I really want to know is, this is the start of Bumrah's career, and he's got off to a great start. I hope he doesn't tail away the way that Irfan Pathan's career tailed away, which we all hope doesn't happen. But let's start with KP. KP, how good is Bumrah? Is he the best bowler in the world?
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. Firstly, great topic. So in my opinion, he is. I think Jasprit is an incredible asset for India. I think it really starts from when he was young, and coaches have always told you can't bowl a certain way, or you're not textbook. You need to do this action or that action. But I think the best thing that happened to Jasprit is he remained natural, which was fantastic. He wasn't coached out of his natural style. And I think that's what makes him truly unique. Apart from obviously his action, his temperament, he loves a challenge. And, he's got fantastic stamina. And, we've seen over the years that his pace has just become better and better. And in my opinion, he is the best bowler in the world, and not across all the three kind of formats of cricket. And that's what kind of stands him out. In Test, I think he's number 2 or number 1. In the ODI rankings, he's in the top 5 as well. And even in the T20, he kind of brings something very, very unique. I think I remember the great West Indies bowler Andy Roberts, was compelled to use the word finest Indian fast bowler he'd ever seen. And, I think I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, I think, you talk about actions and stuff. And actually, when you freeze frame Jasprit Bumrah's bowling action from a side-on perspective, his body is basically contorted like a letter S. It's actually such a weird thing to see, but that's obviously where he gets all of his pace from. Naresh, what do you think? Jasprit Bumrah, where does he rank for you?
Yeah, I completely agree with Kunal rather KP, on what Bumrah has been for India. And when you spoke about action, he started sometime, rather we all started seeing him sometime way back in 2013 when he was picked up for Mumbai Indians. That was the same year he started playing for Gujarat. I think what caught on the eye was his action, definitely. And more surprisingly, his last stride, the power of the shoulder that was getting the pace off the deck. He does not have a long run up compared to the other fast bowlers. So all the energy is in the last stride and the shoulder. And that's the pace he was generating, which caught on the eye and surprised the batsman. I think he's deceptive as a bowler. And then the variation he gets in. And most important benefit Bumrah has got from 2013 till date, playing for Mumbai, is the mentorship of Malinga. Because Malinga also comes with a very, very unique action. So as KP said, he kept his originality of the action. No one worked on his action. That was kept the way it was. But it was the variation and the impact of the wicket which made batsmen really think whom they're facing. So he became a very unpredictable bowler for India. And that's where he is, I would say, yes, I leave the ranking aside, but he is today the best. Because he is putting fear in the batsman before the match starts. And I think that is most important, the impact he's making.
Yeah, I think that comparison to Malinga, obviously he's had that comparison pretty much at the start of his career, and I think obviously that mentorship at Mumbai Indians has had a massive impact on him. Kunal in Sydney, what do you think about Bumrah? Does he rank at the top of the best bowlers in the world for you?
All right. With me, I have just a bit different opinion because, yeah, he has been fierce, he has been good, he has been excellent. I have seen his debut in Sydney because he made his debut in Sydney 2016. But I think so after coming back from injury, I'm still thinking that he is just bit off rhythm. But if he's on the song, then he can destroy any batting attack on a given day. So right now, I think so after coming back from injury, I think so his pace is down a bit as well. And the consistency with which he used to bowl is just not correct, I would say.
Yeah, Rav, in the last series against New Zealand that Kunal's talking about, he came back from injury. He'd lost a little bit of pace and rhythm, but the worrying thing was it kind of looked like Kane Williamson had figured him out a little bit.
Yeah, I think obviously he was coming back off a significant injury layoff. And I think for somebody who plays quite a lot of cricket, across all three formats, I think there was always this kind of day of reckoning where we would have to discuss his injury record, his injury profile going forward, and how we use him sparingly. And I think that's one thing that in a way, Bumrah is very unique with. And if you compare him to probably the only other bowler at his level now, I would say it's Pat Cummins across formats. Pat Cummins plays pretty much every game for Australia, whereas Bumrah, we save him. He's not played a test match in India yet. So, we use him very sparingly. And, that can he's still a very, very good bowler, but I think we need to get him on the park a little bit more. I think the ultimate sign of respect is that teams look to play him out now. I mean, you look at the World Cup semi-final, New Zealand, they barely played any shots against him in the first 5 overs, and he got an early wicket as well. So I think he's definitely up there, but I think because he only plays away from home in assistive conditions, I think we obviously need to start seeing him in India, in Asian style conditions as well.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing is that, with India, we don't have the greatest history of producing world-class fast bowlers. So the only person really historically, India-wise, you can actually compare him to is probably Kapil Dev. And we don't really know how good Bumrah is going to shape up, until his career is obviously over, to see how good he was compared to Kapil Dev. But I guess time will tell. Now, you mentioned Pat Cummins within there, so now I think we'll get into discussing how good this Indian bowling attack really is when you compare them to other bowling attacks around the world. KP, I think really the only other teams we're talking about really are England, Australia, and New Zealand. They're the only teams which actually I would say have bowling attacks which are just as good as ours, if not better. If you look at some of the names that England have, obviously you've got your Anderson and Broad in tests, you've got Archer, Curran, Wokes, some of the best white ball bowlers and red ball bowlers in the world at the moment. You've obviously got Australia, as Rav mentioned, Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark. Even with New Zealand, you've got Wagner, Bolt, Jameson, Southey. So when I mention all of these names, would you have one of those bowling attacks over ours, or would you actually rather stick with ours?
Yeah, great question. So I think even taking step back slightly, going slightly older, like Andrew Strauss, had that balance as well with Graham Swan at his disposal, with the likes of Anderson and Broad. You also had obviously Pakistan, Misbah ul Haq. At one point he was able to rely on Yazir Shah and Ajmal, even though at that point they didn't have a particularly strong attack. But I think for me, I would take this current Indian attack over sort of Australia's or England's, simply because I feel it's the most balanced, and I think it's the most improved over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years. And honestly, I think that's down to Bharat Army, our bowling coach. We've got a structure in place on how to approach teams now. And I think because he's kind of brought that on board, these bowlers have improved. And Kohli probably gets a little bit of credit as well, just because of his aggression, and making a kind of a key point of his that he really wants to kind of improve India's bowling attack. And as we've toured more, our bowlers have quickly learned. And of course, with Bumrah coming on, that's kind of accelerated everything. But in this current climate, I would definitely take our quartet of we've got a great balance of pace. So you've got quick, super quick with the likes of Jasprit and Umesh. You've got the swing of kind of reverse swing of Mohammad Shami. Ishant is relentless. And you give him a pitch like Lords, and he's capable of destroying the attack. And then we're kind of. I know we're going to get into this a lot more when it comes to spinners, but we are still blessed with spinners. We have wrist spinners, we have off spinners, and we've got an option of a leggy as well. And not many countries have that kind of balance, even in reserve, which I feel is we're kind of blessed with that. So yeah, I would still take our bowling lineup currently.
Yes, indeed. We will definitely get into it with the spinners later on. Don't you worry about that. Kunal, Sydney, obviously living out in Australia, when I say the names Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, and Lyon, obviously in there as well, that bowling attack, obviously in Australian conditions as well, is pretty lethal. But how do people in Australia think about our bowling attack? Do they also think that our bowling attack is as good as theirs, or do they look at their bowling attack and just say that is the best in the world?
All right. I will just tell you that I work in a workplace where I'm the only Indian. The rest of all are Aussies, and all are cricket fanatics. And I have heard many times from them that this bowling attack of India is one of the best they have seen in at least 20 to 30 years. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So that is something to be proud of. because not only the current bowling attack, they are also saying that the reserves which they have seen, like Chahar and Saini, who are like pretty fast and quick, and they can swing the ball as well. So our bowling attack is like, probably I would say it is like a like to like for with Australia. Like, we have got Bumrah who can match up with Stark. We have got Ishant Sharma who can match up with Hazelwood, like who can bowl whole day. We have got a Mohammad Shami, like you can easily compare him with Pat Cummins. Like, yes, Bumrah has been bit off the song, but Mohammad Shami recently he has been like on the peak very much. Yeah.
And you know, I suppose that really, when it comes down to it, you know, bowlers need to win matches for India. And when it comes to that last Test series in Australia, we basically bullied them with our fast bowling, which is something that I, in my lifetime, never thought I would see. Is an Indian pace attack going out to Australia and actually intimidating and bullying an Australian batting lineup. Naresh, what about you with this Indian bowling attack when you compare some of the other names around the world? Where do you think they fare up?
So, sorry, Rav, I'll have to take Ravi Shastri's name. 2017, after Champions Trophy, is when this pair came together, Shastri and Kohli. And Kohli was very clear he wanted a frontline five-bowler attack for Test cricket too. And that was the year when Bumrah made his debut in Test cricket. Rather, January 5th, 2018, he played his first Test in South Africa. I think what is important in this attack is the impact they are making during changing conditions of a game. Bumrah has been an impact bowler. Virat Kohli looks upon him for changing when required, so that either he in the white ball cricket to stop the flow of runs, in Test matches to get the breakthroughs. Mohammad Shami is complementing him very well. I think that is what has worked very well for India in the last 18 months, is the way these frontline fast bowlers have complemented each other. And what has worked very well, the way India has utilized Ishant Sharma's services. It's a very clear thought given that he's going to be a Test bowler, a red ball bowler rather. So he's been utilized very well. The reserves have been phenomenal. Umesh Yadav. So if you put all these four together, yes, we are going to discuss spinners. I think the focus comes that these four are going to take the 20 wickets required in a Test match. And after Champions Trophy, India had in their FTP of the various overseas assignments or the overseas series they're going to play. I think that was the focus for Shastri and Virat Kohli. We were quite low on the Test ranking. We had to come up on the Test ranking. So the focus was that how are these bowlers going to perform? What surprised everyone was the same set of fast bowlers did very well in Indian conditions last year without Bumrah. So that is where I think many have reacted that this probably is the best ever attack everyone has seen, because they did what many fast bowlers have done very well at home. India did very well in overseas conditions, and this set of bowlers did very well in Indian conditions. So that consistency was seen. So I would say, yes, this probably is the best what we have seen as far as the Indian fast bowling unit. They have done well to reciprocate well to what Kohli has demanded out of them. I think that's something very, very, very well implemented or executed. The plans, what is required from each bowler, their roles are very clear. How they have backed each other up. As we keep talking about the batsman partnership, I think these guys have proved what a bowling partnership could be. So I think these are few things. Yes, rankings would say a different story, but I think how they have kind of settled or adjusted to those match environments, especially in overseas conditions, have been phenomenal.
Yeah, Rav, maybe the genius of Ravi Shastri might be behind some of this. But I've mentioned some of those other bowling attacks, and obviously England stands out a fair bit. You've got Anderson and Broad in Tests, and then obviously with the white ball, Archer, Curran, Wokes is another bowler who has just been absolutely phenomenal in the past few years. How does our bowling attack compare to that one?
It's a good question. I think if you look at England historically, Duke's ball, there's nobody better in the game, obviously, because that is only other countries recently have started using the Duke's ball. As soon as they get a Kookaburra ball, it doesn't seem to work for England. And if you look at India in Australia across the last 2-3 tours, compared to England, we've managed to get more out of those surfaces than England have. So I would say when the ball nips and does a bit off the surface, which is not Australian-like. I think England South Africa, England always do very well in South Africa. Whereas in places where it's more about bounce and getting something out of, a pitch that's not doing very much, there's bounce in it, and a ball that goes soft very early. I think India have learnt skills on home conditions and using an SG ball that makes them more potent abroad than England, I would say. I think some of the points raised earlier are really great. I think Ishant Sharma is a really, really important piece of the puzzle here because, certainly he's bowling a yard fuller than he used to bowl. And I think that's been key for him. And also the way he can tie up left-handers means that for a lot of openers are left-handers these days. It means India tend to get an early wicket. And then Shami has just gotten so fit to the point where he's probably a 3 formats, if not 2 formats bowler himself. And also he's a huge strike option. I think I was reading somewhere that in the last 3-4 years, there's no bowler that's got a better average in the first 10 overs bowling than Mohammad Shami. So, I still think we should have played him in that semi. But, I think we've got bowlers that can weather all conditions. And obviously we're going to talk about spinners. I think that's the one thing India need to solve.
Yeah, I think, Naresh, you've actually hit on a really good point about Ishant Sharma there, because this is something that I was thinking about earlier too, that Ishant obviously is he's the elder statesman in the team now. He's the most experienced of all the bowlers, but he seems to keep developing his skills as he's getting older. And one of the things that he has developed, like Rav just mentioned, is bowling to left-hand batsmen, which, as Rav said, like they open the bowling a lot. But Naresh, he's developed this leg cutter, which kind of jags back into left-handers, which, he was never able to do that in the past. So it seems like he's actually adding to his repertoire at the moment.
You want Ishant Sharma to perform, show him the bowling he did against Ricky Ponting. He'll be all fired up. He was unplayable. Ricky Ponting just couldn't play him. So that's the potential Ishant has. His height helps him a lot. Naturally tall from the angle he comes in. But yes, most important, the fuller he bowls, especially with the new red ball, the more benefit he gets. And that is what I think the focus has been, as I heard, the importance of Bharat Arun supporting these set of bowlers. So that's where Ishant has done very well, is that he has focused on the new red ball. He has focused on bowling upish so that the ball can move more than anticipated. And most important, his height has been a huge, huge benefit for this attack.
He's almost like fine wine, right? He just seems to be getting better with age. I think he had this label of being the unluckiest bowler in the world at one point, but over time he's kind of put that to bed. And I think over the last 2 years, his average in Test matches is I think I was reading a stat the other day is almost less than 20. And we forget it's not an easy bowler to be in Indian conditions, and he's kind of held the ship for so many years. I think he's great proof of how patience can kind of reap great dividends.
Yeah, he was written off. He was written off in between, because a fitter Bhuvaneshwar Kumar really is dangerous because he swings the ball a lot, and that is where he was kind of sidelined. But I think this is where the competition comes in, and that's a very, very positive to see that we have so many reserves who can really fit in when required.
Yeah, I do actually remember early on in Ishant's career when he started, and you obviously mentioned that spell against Ricky Ponting where he was just absolutely unplayable. But I remember Wasim Akram did an interview. I think it was on an Indian chat show, and they asked him who's the most overrated bowler in the world, and his answer was Ishant Sharma. So I wonder if Wasim Akram still thinks that. Who knows? Now that Ishant's career is kind of in the twilight years. I suppose the one difference with the Indian bowling attack compared to some of the other bowling attacks that we've mentioned is that India really are in slightly a transition period. And two of the names that Kunal and Sydney mentioned, Deepak Chahar and Navdeep Saini, are kind of two players that they're trying to bleed into the team more and more, especially with the T20 World Cup coming up soon as well, in Australia as well, Kunal. Do you think Chahar and Saini are two players who would benefit from those conditions out in Australia?
I definitely believe so. And especially Navdeep Saini, he can be our trump card.
I think so. I think so too. He's got this raw pace to him, I think, which is something that not a lot of our bowlers actually have. KP, you talked about obviously the coaches and how much they've helped. How much do you think they can develop players like Chahar and Saini?
Yeah, tremendously. I think I think they can, obviously, apart from being positive and encouraging, I think they can use our current bowlers as a template for them to reach new heights. Like they can almost use Jasprit and all these guys who are more mature now, and they can be kind of mentors to these kind of new upcoming bowlers. I can almost think of back to the West Indies attack of the 80s or 90s, and we've got the potential to kind of have that. So I think the coach and even the captain is going to play a big role in their development going forward, just like they have with the Bumrahs, with the Shamis rather, Kuldeep as well. So I think with the right structure in place, kind of the right fitness program, and doing more overseas tours and giving them this exposure, I think it's only going to help us and help Indian cricket.
Rav, Chahar and Saini, where do you think that they could fit into this team? Who do you think might have to make way for those guys to eventually come in?
I think the good thing about those two is that they can make their way within the T20 side regularly first, and then afterwards we can start looking at them in terms of giving them regular games ahead of the 2023 50 over World Cup. So I think they give us options in both, and obviously we've got two T20 World Cups, we hope, in the next 2 years. So that should give them kind of all conditions experiences. One's obviously in Australia, and one will be probably a bit of a precursor towards the 2023 conditions that they'll face as well. So I think they're full of talent. I agree with what Kunal said, and the guys. I think Saini especially, raw pace, and somebody who can really shake up batsmen. And also Deepak Chahar is somebody I think he's got the best figures in T20 international cricket, and he's still so young, so he can develop even further. And I know that Dhoni absolutely raves about him. So I think they're full of talent for us, and we're very lucky to have them.
Yeah, Naresh, I think that we obviously have Umesh Yadav in the team at the moment, who is, when he started, he had some raw pace, but we haven't really seen pace like Saini's in the Indian team for quite a while. And I think that obviously growing up in the 90s, like I did, watching, Wasim Akram and Waqar Younis and Shoaib Akhtar, yeah. I think a little bit of this is, the little bit of the envy that we had of Pakistan, thinking, yes, we finally got some bowlers now with some raw pace.
Yeah. Saini is very promising. He's a good prospect for India. But if we talk specific about T20 or the upcoming World Cup, the bowling attack has to revolve around Shami and Bumrah. And we need to get another person into equation in a bowling attack is Hardik Pandya, a fit Hardik Pandya. He's going to play also an important role in that bowling attack for T20. But definitely, Saini and Chahar are up there to really give the Indian selectors a lot to think about of who could be making it for the T20 World Cup. Overall, I think Saini is one who can be really groomed as a backup for all formats. As you mentioned about Umesh Yadav still, if you see 2019, he has done really, really well for himself. He has generated a lot of pace even on Indian tracks and has been impactful. So I think Saini can be a very, very good backup. Ishant Sharma, as you mentioned, is close to a fag end of his career. He's done extremely well for India. But as far as the pipeline is concerned, it's very promising to see the way Saini is bowling. The couple of under-19s who have come from India, the fast bowlers, they are there. So I think it's a good prospect to see how the fast bowling aspect of Indian cricket, which we never spoke about a decade back, has kind of the way the selectors, the coaches have groomed this set of bowlers.
Well, I'll tell you what we were talking about 10 years back, and that was our spinners, because they were really the only hope we had of ever winning matches back then. Spin. Where do we get started with this topic? Now, I like to think of this Indian team really, the BC and AD, and I think the point in the middle really was that Champions Trophy final in 2017. Which, really strangely, after that match, I thought, God, Jasprit Bumrah, I hope they never pick him again. It shows what I know. But then again,
unfortunate no ball, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He had such a shocker in that match, and I thought, well, that's it. He's done. He's never coming back into the team. Now, after that match, I think that the Indian coaching staff basically said, right, that was the era of Jadeja and Ashwin, and it's done now. It's over. We need to transition Kuldeep and Chahal into the team now. Kuldeep Yadav and Yuzvendra Chahal. That didn't work out. In the 2019 World Cup, obviously, they were in the squad. They were in and out of the team. But really, Jadeja came back like never before, really, and started playing the best cricket that he ever had done in his career, with the bat and with the ball, some may argue. Yeah. So let's start with Rav with this, because Rav, we actually had an earlier podcast where we talked about stealing players from other teams, and we both agreed that the T20 player that we would steal is Rashid Khan. So we're taking an Afghanistan bowler over two of our own homegrowns in T20s. Does that say something about our current spin bowling attack and how we're not producing the players that we used to?
I think the Champions Trophy example is an interesting one, because India were already going into that tournament. India were the only side to not have a frontline wrist spinner. We'd stuck with two finger spinners, and I think the game had moved on to the point where, after we'd lost that and Ashwin, took some real hammering in that final, I think the think tank was very much that we need to move towards wrist spin, and obviously a lot of other sides had very successful results with doing so. We obviously picked two wrist spinners. One was a Chinaman bowler. And I think going into the World Cup, they had a great 2018 in New Zealand, South Africa, places that don't turn that much. And we all thought going into 2019, they would do really, really well in the World Cup. But I think they've lost a lot of confidence, Kuldeep especially. And I think, first of all, I still back them. And I still think it was the right thing to do to take Ashwin and Jadeja out of that and try something different. Jadeja's come back because I don't think it's purely because of his bowling. I think it's because of he's in all formats, he does everything in a game. And I think he offers something that really only Hardik Pandya offers. And obviously he was injured for a large part of the recent past. So I think in terms of where the team is, I think that they've got a lot to be looking forward to. And I think we need to stick with the Chahal and certainly Kuldeep, who's still very, very young. You can turn careers around very fast, and who's to say he couldn't win us the 2023 World Cup on home soil? But I do think that it was the right thing to do to move away from Ashwin, especially. But Jadeja comes back on just because he offers you so much.
Yeah, that Champions Trophy final is the one and only time I ever saw my dad throw a choppal at the TV. And that was actually because he couldn't stand watching Ashwin's bowling. He just thought he was absolute garbage in that final. KP, our spin situation is a little bit up in the air at the moment. But what's going on, do you think, behind the scenes with these guys, especially with Kuldeep and Chahal?
Yeah, good question. I think it's down to confidence. They haven't had the best of last couple of years, especially obviously the 2019 World Cup, which was last year. Inexperienced a little bit, obviously not having bowled in conditions like that often. I know they've been around for quite some time, but a lot of the success did come from the IPL in kind of home conditions. So I agree with Rav that we need to back them. I don't think it's about talent. The talent is there. The skill is there. The temperament is there. And we've seen it. We've seen Kuldeep rip it and, get that kind of terrific wicket. Just like, Adil Rashid got Kohli out. I remember that one very fondly. Chahal's got this nagging line of picking up wickets. And we know even MS has backed him. So honestly, I think it's just down to a little bit of confidence. I think if you have one good series, whether it's in Test or an ODI, that kind of confidence will come back. Virat Kohli backs them, so they've got their kind of support from the captain and the coach, including in the 2019 World Cup was a big call and the right one. I agree, but I think it's just all down to confidence. And just look at Jadeja. Really, I think you have to take inspiration from him. The guy's been dropped so many times, and he's come back with the zest. Of course, he offers your fielding, your batting, but he kind of backs himself to bowl those nagging lines, and he always picks up wickets in tough conditions. So I think they just have to take inspiration from people like Jadeja, that you can come back and you can sort of start taking wickets.
Yeah, in baseball they have a term for players called five-tool players, which basically means that they can do everything. And I think that Jadeja is that guy for us, where you can put him into any situation. You can have him open the bowling, you can have him open the batting, and he will actually be able to do something. So he's a name, I think, along with our captain and Rohit Sharma, which are the first names to go down on the team sheet, no matter what format you're playing in. Naresh, I want to talk a little bit about Kuldeep Yadav, I think, more than any other of the spinners, I think. Yadav has a hat-trick under his belt against Australia. For me, one of my favourite memories of the 2019 World Cup was his wicket of Babar Azam against Pakistan. That delivery was just magical. It was probably the ball of the tournament, I would say. However, I think KP touched on the fact that the IPL has helped a lot of these bowlers to hone their skills. But when it comes to Yadav, I remember the IPL before the 2019 World Cup. He was absolutely awful during that IPL, and he got hammered pretty much in every match. And I remember that one image of him sat at the sidelines almost in tears after one particular match, because I think he went for like 23 runs in an over or something like that. The IPL, is it actually helpful to these bowlers, or can it be detrimental?
I think it's a very thin line of tagging someone as a T20 specialist and a Test specialist. I think that is something which needs to change. I think one who has a talent to do well can do well in any format. Talking specific about spin, I think it's still a mystery of, as you mentioned, 10 years back, we used to talk about spin and we used to say why we can't produce fast bowlers. We are in a different situation now. We have the fast bowlers. We are struggling a bit. We have the spinners. That will remain our strength. But are we playing the right spinner in the right game? And I think that is what is becoming a bit of a concern, where there is not been given enough consistent length to a spinner to play in a particular series or a set of series or set of matches, and that is what is happening. Kuldeep Yadav is one of those bowlers. One, he's a Chinaman, so he also comes across as a very unique, odd kind of a bowler. He can turn the ball both ways. Off the hand, it all will remain the same. It just turns both the ways. It's very important to someone talking to him, if the management agrees, is that yes, this 5 Test series, you're going to play all the 5 Test matches. This 5 one-days, you're going to play all the 5 one-days. That is something which I think is missing out because of the choice one has. The team is having that choice. The team is not deciding the final 11 probably until 2 days of the Test match starting or a one-day starting. And most important, as you mentioned, Jadeja has to play each and every format till he plays cricket. So you need to, as you said, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Jadeja, and probably Bumrah. I would name these 4 who should be the main core of the Indian team and rest around them. But if you're playing in conditions which are going to favor fast bowlers, that is where all the spinners are now feeling, are they going to make it to the 11 or no? And Kuldeep has been one of those who has lost confidence of being unsure whether he's there or he's not there. And I was there in Manchester, that ball, which actually I would say that turned the match. Pakistan started off well. They were chasing very well. That turned the game. But yes, the confidence is low purely because of an assurance that, yes, consistently they're going to play in the top 11. Like how Nathan Lyon is confident, he's sure in the Australian lineup for Test matches. It was the same when Shane Warne was there. So that's something which the think tank has to work on. There has been good focus on fast bowlers. The results are there, but somewhere we are losing. And Ashwin has been a mystery. And the only reason we can say he's not been there in the game plan is purely because of his fielding. And the game has changed a lot. The game has evolved a lot. Fielding makes a very, very critical part of a cricket game now. So, 350 test wickets, not playing test match, or rather not being in the top 11, though he's in the 15 or 16 squad. He took 350 wickets in 54 test matches compared to Dennis Lilly, who took 56 test matches to take 350. How can you imagine an Australian team without Dennis Lilly when he was playing? So it's changed a lot, but there has to be some more confidence building exercise of who is going to be your top one spinner to play in the top 11.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Ashwin, and I think that even Ashwin's slowly starting to, creep his way back into the test team now. So, we'll have to wait and see what kind of shape the test team takes up. Kunal, out in Australia when India beat Australia in the last test series, Jadeja was pretty much our one and only spinner while we had out there. And obviously I know the conditions are much different down there. But, what do you think that does to the confidence of some of these new spinners where they're thinking, well, the all-rounder who does a little bit of spin with his left arm is getting in the team above me?
Yeah. So this is the thing. Like if we say rewind back, say 15 years or 20 years, no matter where India is playing, 2 or 3 spinners would be there. If they're playing in England, Australia, no matter where.
Yeah.
And now the things are reversed. And Ravi Shastri, he said, horses for courses. And that is what he's following. And probably that is the reason it is like the spinners, they are like low in confidence. And if you look at like say past 2 years, India has been doing a lot of tours outside. They haven't played any cricket in subcontinent. So most of them haven't got chance to even play there. And that is the thing, like, and that is what it is stopping. Like, say, if I would be Kuldeep Yadav and if I don't have a certainty to play at least one whole series, then every game I go in would be like a sword on my neck. So it definitely is like saying one match you perform or your career is over.
So, I mean, you mentioned your Aussie mates out there and what they think about the Indian team and the Indian bowling attack and how good they are. What do they think about Nathan Lyon? Because, I've been watching that series on Amazon Prime, The Test, about Australia's test series. Very, very good series. If you haven't watched it out there, it's really brilliant, yeah. They often brag on that show about Nathan Lyon being the best spinner in the world. Would you have Nathan Lyon in your team above any of our spinners?
I would, yes. Because the thing with Nathan Lyon is, with his balls, he can grip on the pitch, which he can produce the turn. With Ashwin, with Ashwin, we have seen that like here in Australia, he played in Sydney Test match, if I'm not wrong, and he wasn't able to get the turn, which like Sydney pitch is known for.
Rav, we've mentioned again the genius of Ravi Shastri coming back into the conversation. But if you had Nathan Lyon to pick from or any of our bowlers, let's talk about some of the other names out there. Adil Rashid, maybe. Who would you rather have in our team?
I think if we're talking test matches, there's been a school of thought for a long time that Ashwin doesn't do it for India when they need it outside of Asia. I think Lyon is a bowler who's got tremendous heart. He seems to be the kind of the heartbeat of that team from that Amazon program that we were talking about. And, I think he's somebody who's performed absolutely everywhere he's been. And I just feel that the bigger issue for us is we need a spinner who on the 3rd, 4th, 5th day can take wickets and bowl us to victories. And, if you look back in the last 2 years at places like Centurion, Southampton, Edgbaston, really places where there were assistive pitches for spin. we've not been able to take the advantage. And I know we should have probably chased runs in those games, but it's better to be chasing 50 or 60 rather than 250. And I think that we've lost the ability to have a spinner who takes wickets of tail enders, especially since Anil Kumble left. And I think that's, if you look at Curran and we talk about England and we should have won that series, if we had a spinner who could, you look at Shane Warne, Murali, they just used to nail tail enders all the time. Yasir Shah are actually very good at nailing tail enders. We've not been able to do that. So I think if you look at other bowlers out there in the world, they're slightly better at dealing with those problems. On pitches that do a lot, Ashwin, there's hardly a better bowler out there, just like with Jimmy Anderson. But when the pitch doesn't tend to do what he wants, and in places like Australia where you tend to need wrist spin rather than finger spin, he tends to struggle.
Well, you mentioned one of the key names, I think, in this entire debate just now, which is Anil Kumble. And I always said that India will be able to replace Sachin Tendulkar. We produce batsmen like there's absolutely no tomorrow, but we are always going to find it difficult to replace Anil Kumble, who I think is, arguably the most important player that's retired over the past 10, 20 years that we've actually struggled to replace. And talking about the past, we love to get nostalgic and talk about past bowling attacks, how good they were. And I'll start with you, KP. How good is this current crop of Indian bowlers compared to bowlers of the past, taking into the fact that we're now the team which can't quite seem to win an ICC tournament again. We've had bowling attacks that have won the 2007 T20 World Cup, 2011 World Cup. Obviously, 2013 wasn't all that long ago. That was another Ashwin and Jadeja masterclass in that final. How does this bowling attack compare itself to past Indian bowling attacks? And really, what I'm asking you is this the greatest bowling attack that India has ever produced? Great
question. I can sense this is going to be very, very intense, controversial at sometimes as well. And in my opinion, I think there's always been one stand-up bowler in kind of every generation, if you want to call it. You've had Kapil Dev during his generation. You had obviously Anil Kumble bowling to great batsmen. I think it also depends on the type of batsman that you're bowling to. Obviously, you had Zahir Khan Zak, who was just phenomenal. And then more recently, obviously, the stand-up bowler is Bumrah. So over the last kind of 25 years, we've had these stand-up bowlers. But have we had a unit together as good as the one which is we have right now? I don't think so. I think the current kind of, if we just look at test matches, for example, with the current lineup of Ishant, Shami, Bumrah, plus say Ashwin or Jaddu, each bowler has either broken a record or won us a test match at some point over the last kind of 5 to 6 years. And, I can't remember in any kind of decade, I've only been alive for maybe X many years, but over the last kind of 20 years, of talking about a unit like that, like we can talk about today. So I would probably have to say it is India's best all-round bowling unit. If I had to maybe pick and choose, obviously, everyone's got their favorites. You have your top 5 of what you combine it with. But in my opinion, as a total unit, I think it is the best Indian bowling lineup.
Yeah, Naresh, I've been looking back nostalgically somewhat, even though I wasn't alive then, at the 1983 team. Obviously, that movie's coming up soon with Ranveer Singh playing Kapil Dev. That 1983 team didn't really have, a lot of superstar bowlers in it, obviously Kapil Dev aside. And if you look at, in particular, that 83 World Cup final, and you look at that West Indies bowling attack, that bowling attack is the bowling attack which will give you nightmares, basically.
True.
Yet we seemed to, get the better of them on that day. And I just wonder whether that bowling attack in 83, like the bowling attack now, really nailed it when it came to bowling as a unit, rather than, having these 1 or 2 standout bowlers in it.
The West Indian attack, probably that's the best attack any team would like to aim for. And I think we are still in that process. I wouldn't say that Indian fast bowler attack today is as good as the West Indian attack. Definitely better than the Indian attack, no doubt about that. But yes, that is what any team and every team would aim for. Marshall, Roberts, Michael Holding. what that team brought in, the West Indian team, the bowlers, were a consistency for a long duration of time. They played together for a very, very long time. That is something which this set of Indian bowlers have to think of. We did discuss something about the T20 World Cup coming up, 2023 World Cup coming up, the Test Championship going on. Can this unit last so long? I think that is something going to be very, very critical. You did mention about Irfan Pathan. There was a time when we had a 3 left-arm bowler attack: RP Singh, Zahir Khan, and Irfan Pathan. Today, we don't have a left-hander in the Indian team. We have Curran for England, Michelle Stark for Australia, Warner and Trent Boult for New Zealand, and these teams are coming up at the same level. So I think going down the line for next 3 years is going to be very critical, how this team continues consistently to perform as a unit, because the benchmark has been set by that West Indies attack. Yes, we won the World Cup in '83. I think that was a changing point for Indian cricket. But to benchmark, that is that bowling attack of West Indies for any team to aim for. We are on the right track. I wouldn't say that the Indian bowling attack is not good. In today's, if you compare the teams, all the teams who are playing Test cricket and ODIs, we have a real good bowling attack up there to change any circumstances, any match. But a consistent spinner, a consistent left-arm bowler, that is something for the future to look for.
Kunal, what do you think about this Indian bowling attack? The greatest Indian bowling attack ever, or do you think that there were other bowling attacks previously that were better?
No, I would say that this is the best bowling attack. But the thing which is lacking is, as we said about 2019 World Cup or 2017 Champions Trophy, we are not hunting it as a pack. Hunting it as a pack is more important. Like, okay, so just this bit off topic. Like, in 90s, everything was on Sachin Tendulkar's shoulder. It is like with the bowlers, if Bumrah performs, yes, we have got chance. It was like but it is like Bumrah performs, Shami performs, Ashwin performs on the same day. Yeah, that would be the best thing. So yeah, we have got the potential. It is not that like we don't have, but yeah, the benchmark set by West Indies is pretty high.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I don't think many bowling attacks will reach that height, quite frankly. Probably not in our lifetimes. But, as far as what we've seen so far in cricket, that is the benchmark, is that West Indies attack. Rav, one of the main reasons why I think that I hesitate a little bit to say that this is the best Indian bowling attack ever is if you look at the tactics of teams who are playing against us in the World Cup. I think one of the main reasons why we came up short was because, teams basically said, leave Bumrah, just, don't play him, don't attempt anything, just absolutely play him out. Wait for the man Hardik Pandya to come on, and that's when we'll fill our boots, basically. The main reason why I struggle with this so much is because, we talked about it on last week's show, and everyone knows kind of how I feel like I need to stop talking about Hardik Pandya now. But, I do think that he is a liability with the ball. And now I think that he makes up such a massive part of our bowling attack now. So this is the main reason why I'm just like a little bit hesitant to say that this is the best Indian bowling attack ever. But where do you rank them?
I think the Pandya discussion is an interesting one. I think we've got to keep it in context, which is that he's still very early on in terms of his development as an all-rounder. And if you look at where he was in 2016, when he bowled that over to Bangladesh and we nearly lost, and you look at him now, I think we'd all agree he's come on leaps and bounds. And if you look now, he's a 10 overs bowler in white ball cricket. We could have very rarely said that at the beginning. In terms of the wider question, how good is this attack? I would say it's certainly the best attack that we've had. But in the absence, as you say, of a really test quality all-rounder, does it compare favourably with other sides of West Indies, Australia? Not yet, in my opinion. But actually, I was thinking about this the other day. We all talk about the 2005 Ashes and that side that beat Australia. I would say our bowling attack is at least as good as that England attack in 2005, if not perhaps a little bit better in terms of records. So, in terms of context, I think this side could get to really, really high levels, but they've still got to stay together for a long time. As Naresh said, I think longevity is the key here. If they can do that, then they'll be spoken about for generations to come.
Yeah, of course, you had 2005, that Flintoff, Harmison, Hoggard, Jones, Ashley Giles 5-pronged attack. And Lord knows that Sky Sports will never let us forget it. KP, we mentioned like some of the other names earlier, Irfan Pathan obviously being one of them. I could just rain down names: Irfan Pathan, Balaji, Munaf Patel, Sri Sant, RP Singh, Mohit Sharma, Praveen Kumar. Like the list just goes on and on and on of these bowlers who have like started and then just completely faded away. So I guess like it's not that difficult at times to say that this Indian attack is the best ever. But historically, we have actually had a problem with, as Naresh said, the longevity of the careers of some of these guys. Well, why do you think that is?
Yeah, great question. And before I answer that, just to add, I think Brian Lara compared recently our current bowling attack to his beloved West Indies 80s and 90s attack. So he said it's well on its way. So I think if Lara is saying that, I think I'd love to jump on that bandwagon and kind of see in 10 years' time as well. But I think it's just down to fitness, Ashish. I think we previously, I just don't think the structure or the coaches ever kind of put into place what we have now. We've never historically kept up with the pace or the line and lengths of, the McGraths or the Brett Lees of the world. And, I remember Ajit Agarkar at one point, he was one of our quickest bowlers. And you look at him in terms of, it's a short little guy with a very kind of nippy action, being one of our quickest bowlers. Now you've got like an array of kind of fast bowlers here, but I think it's down to fitness and, not maybe our structure back in the day wasn't in place to focus on producing bowlers like Pakistan did. Their strength was producing these 90 plus mile hour like cricketers, Shoaib Akhtar, Waqar Younis, Wazim Akram. Historically, they were never this kind of strongish on their batting side, even though you had the likes of Saeed Anwar and those guys, but they focused on producing bowlers like a machine. And I think that was our problem. We couldn't produce bowlers, so we kind of paid more attention to producing batsmen or spinners. So I think it's just being kind of fitness and kind of having that focus of, focusing on our batsmen and spinners back in the day rather than fast bowlers. And now it's obviously, as you know, from what Virat said, it's completely different. He wants a pace attack that can bowl in all conditions. And I think if they keep themselves fit, like Naresh said, they can go on for a while. You've seen with Ishant, right? He's just got better and better because I think the support's there. Bharat Army's doing a great job in the net. So all these kind of small things makes a difference in the long term.
Yeah, of course. You're talking about fitness there, and I once paid cold hard cash, my own hard-earned money, to watch an India team which featured a bowling attack consisting of Ramesh Pawar. So let that be a lesson to all of you. Naresh, we briefly mentioned the West Indies bowling attack, the great West Indies bowling attack. And there's another great documentary for all of you cricket fans out there who haven't seen it, a documentary about that West Indies team called Fire in Babylon, which is a really, really good documentary.
Great documentary.
But one of the things that I found, which was a little bit of a comparison for me, was that Clive Lloyd, at the start of that documentary, when he actually wanted to create that pace bowling attack, they basically got hammered by the great Australian fast bowling attack, which had Dennis Lilly in it, who we obviously talked about earlier. And he then went to his coach and said, right, what they did to us, I want to do that back to them. And I want to scour the whole of the West Indies and find fast bowlers wherever they are who can bowl as fast. And I think Kohli has basically done the same thing. I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, that, that partnership of him and Ravi Shastri has kind of done what Clive Lloyd has wanted to do in the past as well, and just say, look, we need to start beating other teams at their game. We can't keep doing this of having these skiddy swing bowlers like we did in the past. We need raw pace in our team to keep up with the rest of the pack.
Yeah, again, I'll have to mention Ravi Shastri in this because his interview post the Melbourne win last year when we beat Australia, he did mention that the plan was to keep the pitch out of the equation and get a bowling attack which can take 20 wickets in a test match. So I think that is what the journey has been in the last 2 years, getting that attack to take 20 wickets in a test match in foreign conditions, that is the home condition for the opponent. And that has taken the world by surprise, what India has done. So yes, that consistency is going to be the key in the next few years. But the journey has been very good. There has been a lot of focus on fitness, and that is where we seem to be surprised on Ashwin's exclusion, purely because the importance given to fitness, the importance given to fielding. The aim is to get those top 11 who are specialist batsmen, specialist bowlers, but all 11 have to be specialist fielders. So that's just something which is a huge change in the way the Indian setup or the think tank is, and lots has to be done. Lot of credit has to be given to limited overs games, especially the T20. The high impact or the pace at which that game is played, and the importance of fielding there, and most important, running between the wickets. We miss out on that in Test cricket. The importance of running between the wickets, the crucial point of when a one can be converted into two into three. That all has to do with fitness. So that's the focus, and I think Kohli has been a great influence himself. He focuses a lot on his own personal fitness, and I think that is what he wants to see all the other players to do. Maybe sometimes it may not go well because each individual has his own capacity or limitation as far as the fitness regime is concerned, or what he goes through every day or does every day. But I think that's the aim. That's what Virat Kohli's expectation is from his team of 11 who come out and play that individual particular game, whether it's a T20, or ODI, or a Test game.
And with that, with the final point being the genius of Ravi Shastri solving all of our problems, that is it for this week's episode of the Bharat Army Podcast. Rav, you'll have to come back another week and talk about Mr. Shastri and your views on him.
Pretty white hairs now talking about Shastri.
We'll all be bald by the end of this series, I think. Yeah. But how does this Indian bowling attack fare up against bowling attacks around the world? Let us know. Hit us up at the Bharat Army on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a like and subscribe, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Check us out on YouTube as well. This will probably be up at the weekend. But with that, stay home, stay safe, look after yourselves, everyone, and we will see you on the next podcast. Take care.